And last, this is what we're getting to now, and I'm going to move into as it relates to using exhibits. Right? I can't tell you enough how I make exhibits part of my direct examinations. I want the exhibits to be part of my direct examinations. If I have an incident and it comes to me in the form of a file, and there's no documents that go along with it, there's no photos, there's no diagram, and I'm just talking to this witness and it's just testimony, and I have the testimony, maybe it's time to create some exhibits. Maybe it's time to send the investigator out or go out ourselves and take a bunch of photographs of that intersection. Right? And I do this for a very important reason. Juries cannot take witnesses into the deliberation room. They have to remember what they said. Some courts let you write it down. Most courts, you're going off the collective memory of the jury as to what witnesses said. Right? But exhibits they take back. And what I want to do, and what I want to think about it from the back going forward, is I want to think, what exhibits do I want in the jury deliberation room with those jurors as they're deciding this case? What exhibits do I want in a stack that reminds them of the testimony and reminds them of the testimony that I presented? I always said that what I want to happen is I want to go out to coffee with a juror like 3 weeks after trial's over. And I want to bring an innocent bystander who wasn't part of the jury, wasn't part of the trial whatsoever. And what I'd like to do is, without saying a word, just hold my exhibits up and say, juror, I'd like you to explain what the case is about. Go. Exhibit 1. They would talk all about what that is, what they saw, and what that exhibit meant in the case. And I flip it over, then they go on. And a juror would be able to explain my whole case through the use of the exhibits that I put in. Every one of those pictures does mean 1,000 words. Make it your 1,000 words. Make it the 1,000 words that steer them in the direction of the result you want in your case. They go back with the jury. Take care in which ones you send back there, and take care in creating ones when they don't have them. Make a diagram, make a demonstrative, make something that's going to help them remember what happened at trial. Right? So I use exhibits I'll go over the testimony, I'll host that conversation, but then there's parts that I want to emphasize. And how do I emphasize them? I put up an exhibit that reflects what they just talked about. And then I go through using the exhibit, the same part of the testimony. Used to drive, in my perspective, it used to drive defense counsel nuts, because I would do a bank robbery and I'd talk to the teller who got robbed at gunpoint by this defendant. And I'd ask the testimony and ask the direct questions and host the conversation, tell the story from their perspective, credit this witness. I do the whole thing. And they think it's over. And then the person took the money and they ran out of the bank. Yeah, that's right. We're looking at a photograph now. What is this? That's my teller station. Where were you standing when he first came into the bank? Oh my God, we're going the whole story all over again. Now I'm just using this photograph, right? And you get through the whole story all over again, and then what happens? Did you have an opportunity to look at a diagram of the inside of the bank? I did. Where were you standing when the person first came through? And notice, I know some of you are thinking with your evidence hats on, isn't this cumulative? But really, it's a way and a tactic to tell this story a couple different times using the exhibits. And if I caught 3 or 4 of my jurors the first time when it was just question and answer, I catch another 3 or 4 of them when they see the picture and they remember it, and then maybe I get the last 3 or 4 of them when I put up the diagram. By the end, all of them understand my story and understand my witness's contribution to the story. So I use exhibits in this way. This comes from this basic rule of thumb, which is tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, right? I want the witness to say the story. I tell them in opening what they're going to say, then I use the exhibits to tell them again, and I keep doing that. And there's another video on this about how to lay foundation for exhibits. It's not what we're talking about here today, but you should pay attention. This is in your trial ad readers. You should pay attention to a very basic rule of 3 as it relates to exhibits. That is, you should be talking about exhibits first before they come up. Right? Talk with the witness about the exhibit first. Was there a photograph? What did the photograph show? What was about this photograph? Was the photograph able to capture this? Talk about it, and then introduce it and lay the foundation for it. It makes it clear for the jury, the judge, opposing counsel, everyone, that we've moved on from this exhibit to this exhibit to this exhibit. And then once it gets in, it's another one that newer trial attorneys drop. Once it gets into evidence, right, do something with it. There's a reason why you chose this exhibit. Use it in some way. Now, publish it. What are we looking at in this picture? Again, Ms. Teller, tell us where you were when the robber first walked in. Right? Use that exhibit in some way to assist the testimony. Can't tell you how many times we get exhibits in, and it's like a finish line of some sorts. You know, plaintiff moves, prosecution at 1 for identification into evidence. Judge says, any objection? No, it'll be received. And then you move on to the next point without ever doing anything with that exhibit. No, that's not the way it works. Use the exhibit right after you do it. And so something as simple as, you want that last questions that we ask in format to be, do you recognize this? Yeah, this is what we were just talking about, because you want to just be talking about it in context all the time. So a diagram like this, whether it's demonstrative or this is actually an aerial picture from Google Maps or what, I'm going to talk all about this diagram and what this diagram reveals and how it works and the cars in the parking lot and was there only 2 lanes to the cars and they face each other and what those 2 cars meant and where they were that day. Where is it in relation to Old Helena High School? Where is it in relation to North Warren? What direction on North Warren were you traveling where you were able to see it? I'm going to ask all those questions first. So all of you, jurors, have a picture in your mind of the aerial we're talking about and the relation of the 2 streets and where the actual high school was. Then when it comes up, when it's published to you, it confirms what you've already kind of formulated in your head. Now it's starting to add to it. Then I'm going to say one of the cars in that parking lot that day, do you recognize it? I did. What was it? It was a Toyota Tacoma. Is that a pickup truck? It is. What color? Gold. What license plate? And I'm going to go into it, I'm going to narrow from this exhibit to the next exhibit. All of you are going to be thinking, all right, pickup truck, I think I know which one the Tacoma is. I have it in my head. I have sort of a vision of what they saw. And then I'm going to go through that next exhibit, and it's going to come up, and that's going to be confirmed too. So this relates to what I want that juror to do in the coffee shop later on. I want them to be able to say, oh yeah, that's Old Helena High School. That's where the incident happened in the parking lot. Oh, that's the gold Toyota Tacoma. That was the defendant's car. That's where he was sitting in it on the day before she exited after her work shift. See what I'm saying? I'm telling the story through these exhibits. It reminds them of the testimony that I carefully put together. And I'm going to sit down now. We're going to do a demonstration, but we don't have a lot of time to talk about demonstrators. We'll talk about demonstrators on a different day. But notice that you can actually have some demonstrators. This was cooperating witnesses versus people that testified. Everyone was in on it at this company at all different levels. You don't even need to know what happened in this case to know this is the way it was supposed to work. But you know what? When the invoices didn't come back, neither did the money. And guess what? That meant all the investor reports were lies. So if I do that during the testimony and then do that during closing, even if they don't understand every facet of this complicated business, they'll understand money not coming back home, so had to commit fraud, right? I can make it, right? I want to make my complicated case into caveman speak, and that's how I would do it, but demonstratives can help. All right, so let's see if we can, you want to do your part next?